This is the VB-MAPP guidebook, and this will help you when you are putting your points in the protocol book. So we are going to go through the guidebook first, and then we'll talk about what they look like together. Really briefly, this is just the table of contents, so you'll see that there's different chapters that all have different topics. In this very first chapter, I'm not going to read through this whole thing, but there is really great background information all about the VB-MAPP, all about the different levels, developmental levels, which we reviewed earlier in this training, and just the overall background and the research behind using the VB-MAPP. I did just want to highlight right here the importance of the assessment. It does say the primary purpose of an assessment is to identify the baseline of a child's skill and to compare it to those of their typically developing peers. And then if a intervention program is warranted, then we use that data from the assessment to determine what intervention that might be. So just to reiterate that the VB-MAPP is an assessment tool, not a curriculum or an intervention. You'll see on this section, there's a table that has all of the operants listed, and then it goes into more depth here of each of the operants. If anybody had any questions about any of those, the background, what that looks like. Again, all just really good information. I'm not going to read word for word. Just wanted to bring it to your attention. All right, so we are looking here. This is starting in chapter 3 now. When we are looking at our guidebook, each of the levels, so you'll see here it says level 1, there's level 2 is green, level 3 is blue. They're all broken up. So this corresponds to your protocol book, which I'll show you in a minute. But if this is the level 1 point for MAND, here, emits 2 word signs or icon selections, but may require echoic, imitative, or other prompts, but no physical prompts. This will tell you what the objective is, what materials or items that you will need in order to assess this area, and then it also gives you examples. So if there's ever a time that you are reading one of these specific points and you don't understand what it's asking, what materials you need an example of that, please use this guidebook. You'll also see here that it shows how to score it as 1 whole point or the criteria that they would meet in order to get the half point. So these 2 books really should be used together, so that way you are understanding each individual point and why your student is getting the points that they are getting. So as you can tell, it's also color-coded. Like I said, level 1 is going to be orange. Here is level 2. You see, here's the start of MAND level 2, which is 0.6. The objective, materials, examples, 1 point, half point score. So it's all laid out in the exact same format with examples and what materials you need. And then same thing for level 3. In the next video, we're going to go through how I can score using this booklet, this guidebook for the protocol book, and I'll show you what that looks like. The next section that I want to review is the barriers assessment. So these are going to be skills that is used to help identify any areas that might impede a child's learning or their progress, or when we look at different behaviors to note as well. So for the barriers assessment only, ideally we want that score to go down year to year because we want to be able to fill in their gaps, and we don't want there to be a lot of barriers to their learning. Whereas the VB-MAPP, all of this stuff, the level 1, 2, 3, we want those scores to go up because we want them to gain a lot of points. So here's an example of what the barriers scoring form looks like. So as you can see here, the higher the score, the more the barrier that there is. So if you had behavior problems, here's this first one, and you had a score of 1, that tells me that this student doesn't have significant problem behavior that's impeding their learning throughout the day. This student, Donnie, has a score of 3. So that tells me that the student does have more significant behaviors to note. Each of the scoring criteria you'll see here is listed of the level that they would get between 0 to 4. So for example, this child, Donnie, got a score of 3 for the behaviors because it's a persistent problem that he emits more severe and frequent negative behaviors, so like tantrums, throwing things, property destruction. That's what gave that child the score of a level 3. So just in the same way that level 1, 2, and 3 earlier were broken down by each of the points, the barriers is also broken down by each of the points. We should be completing the barriers assessment for our students in the same way that we are doing the VB-MAPP assessment, just so we can look at this data and see what areas are impairing their learning, and what areas we still need to continue to work on getting these scores lower. This next section is optional, but we wanted to provide it as a resource that it's really good information to help determine whether a student is ready for more time in an inclusion or general education setting. It's called the transition assessment. So in the same way that there is a VB-MAPP, here listed in the protocol book, there's also a section for transitions, which I'll show you in just a moment. Here are the different categories that the transition section is broken down into. And then here's an example of what the scoring form looks like as well. So this is all very helpful information in determining whether a student is ready for general education time or they need more foundational skills built up in your autism support classroom or not. And then if they do, if they are not ready yet, where are the areas that they need more improvement on in order that they can be successful out in general education. This last section here, in the same way that it broke down level 1, 2, 3 with the orange, green, and blue tabs, it also breaks it down again and just gives some examples and guidance on how to write IEP goals using your data that you've collected from the VB-MAPP assessment. Again, I'm not going to go over all of that. I just wanted to highlight it on here and give you time to look through it yourselves and see what might work best for some of your students as you are going to be writing their IEPs. So next we're going to look at putting both of these things together, the protocol book and the guidebook.